Um, do I believe we now have Michael Severe on the phone? Michael, how are you? How we doing? Can you hear us?
I'm good. So Damon was taking back a text. That's all I heard. I couldn't hear anything else besides Damon was taking back a text. I have no idea what it was. What was that?
So I felt like I didn't want it to be a debate, but I said one of my picks was, or
Yeah.
one of my things was, hey, um, the Dart to Sanders thing, right? Because I was like,
Right.
and you're like, well, I didn't like either one of them, and I said, well, that wasn't really the discussion about how much I liked him. I just thought that Dart was closer to Shedeur than Shedeur was to Cam. But you were very mature in not engaging me in that back and forth. You're like, I'm on to wide receivers. I like Ibuka. So I was like, oh, maybe he was tired. I like that. I should be more
No,
mature
no.
too.
I'll tell you. I'll tell you. I did not remember. I'm sure we had the conversation. I didn't remember it. Now that I think about it this morning, when I'm not in the heat of the moment of watching the draft,
I
I
was
remember.
too.
I remember that. I remember you saying that. And my thing was, I remember when you asked me that. I didn't like either one of them. The thing that doesn't make a lot of sense, and this is funny because so many things you benefit from having a famous father at times.
Yeah.
This is one of the times where Shedeur doesn't benefit from it because, I mean, there's not a person on the planet that would tell you that Jaxson Dart is more prepared to play football in the NFL right now than Shedeur Sanders. But because of the amount of divisiveness about him, and part of it's his personality, he gets pushed down, and I don't know where he ends up. But I know right now, if I had to put a quarterback on the field and you gave me either one of those guys and said start now, there's no way I would pick Dart. I mean, the man can't have to do a second read. He's a guy that when the pocket's clean,
Yeah.
he's incredible. Look at his clean numbers under the analytics. He's great. But as soon as he's got to go to a second option or it's over like 1.8 seconds, it's brutal. And so, again, I get why the Giants went with Jaxson Dart. It makes sense for what they want, and I hope it works out for them. I have a lot of Giants friends that are fans, but I personally don't think it will. Now, maybe Shedeur falls to a place now where he should have been all along, middle of the second round, but we'll see.
Michael, is there a pick? I know you kind of put your list out on Twitter last night of guys that you particularly liked from this draft. Did you have a particular fit in personnel pick from last night that was your favorite?
It's funny that you mentioned the word fit because there are guys I really like who got drafted in spots, but then there's guys who I just think are great fits. And I've told this to Damon forever. The Steelers have a great talent of just sitting in a spot and getting the guy that if you were going to sit there and play that game where you match the words up together, every time they do that. Now, you need to replace Cam Hayward. He's now, 61 years old. You need a guy to be able to take his spot.
I think they maybe have him.
I think so. They drafted a perfect replacement. I mean, if you would have asked me, take everything out of it, what Pittsburgh probably needs the most, and they do need a quarterback. I mean, that's pretty obvious. I would have said, this is the guy. Harmon makes the most sense because he fits what they want to do with their system, and they get a guy for another year at least to train him in the system. Yeah. So I think what Pittsburgh did, I think what the Ravens did, CeeLo, I think what and I thought what Kansas City did sitting there, Josh Simmons could have been a top 5 pick, easily a top 5 pick. But he gets hurt for the 5th game of the season or whatever, and maybe people are downgrading for that. But just watch his tape. I think he's the best offensive lineman in the draft. I really do.
I think everybody did. Isn't that the thing?
I think most people did.
I think because he's the only guy that anybody talked about as, that's a top 5 talent if he's healthy. Like, I know Will Campbell actually goes in the top 5, but there's not a soul in the NFL that takes Will Campbell over Simmons if all things are equal, right?
Well, you look. There was only.
I don't know. I do think Campbell's pretty good though.
No, but that's just how they think of Simmons.
They still it. That didn't seem fair. I think Campbell is pretty good.
Here's the thing about Campbell, and I watched him play a lot at LSU, and the man did not give up a lot of sacks.
Not that Campbell. I'm talking Philadelphia. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant Will Campbell.
No, I was talking about Will Campbell.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So the funny thing about Will Campbell, though, is go back and look there's not a lot of guys playing tackle in this league that have a wingspan under 80 inches.
Yeah.
And he's the shortest wingspan of any of the eligible tackles to be drafted this year, right? There's another guy who's right even with him, but he's considered to be a fifth rounder. So I hate going against like the history of the NFL, you know, and taking a guy. But I think if Will Campbell ends up being a guard, just like what the Saints did, I think if ends up becoming a guard, then that's not horrible to have a really good guard, especially depending on what kind of quarterback you have. So I don't dislike Will Campbell going there. I just don't think that he's going to be a tackle in the league. Just like with the Saints did. I don't think Banks is a tackle. Matter of fact, I said it to him when I interviewed him. I thought he was a guard. I still think he's a guard. I think he's going to be a starting left guard for the Saints eventually. But, again, they needed a tackle, and they didn't take a tackle, in my opinion.
What do you think Dallas was thinking with Booker?
Here's the funny thing. So I had Booker going in my little mock draft. I had him going 32nd to the Eagles, or the Eagles moving up to take him because he is an Eagles guard. I think he'd be great. Now, once you get past the moment of the draft when you go, that's way too early for Dallas, and move past that, I have to say it is a great pick for them. It's a bad spot. You trade back if you can, you get some more picks, and then you take Booker. But in the end, a big physical, nasty guy like he is, I understand why Dallas would want him, and he's going to fit right in and be good. The value for him at that point is just crazy because I don't think anybody thought he was more that he would go before 25. I don't think so. I did see one mock draft that had Dallas taking him at 12, and one of the Dallas reporters put this sheet out of top 15 draft guards who didn't play tackle in college, and none of them succeeded. So it's going to be interesting to see. Normally, if you go that high and you're a guard in the NFL, it means you were moved from being a tackle at some point in college. He's not that. He's been a guard the whole time. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that one.
Hey, did you like we talked about this guy as a corner, and it was in relation to Will Johnson, who I still think is going to be a steal for somebody. But I liked Maxwell Harrington. Do you worry about the length or the kind of the brevity of his production and kind of being a testing freak?
What worries me a little bit is where he went. Again, Ravi said earlier, fit, right? So he goes to a team that primarily plays zone, and we all know he's a man corner, right? Relies on his speed, relies on his athleticism. He's a man corner. So are you switching over and moving more to playing man with him, or are you trying to force him into being a zone corner, which Buffalo has done in the past, and it hadn't worked out? So that's my question with him. I think he sounds like a great kid. Listen to him talk, and I love his athleticism, but is it a good fit? I don't know. They have to change what they're doing, I guess, or he's got to be able to figure out what he's doing and be able to play zone. I don't know how they handle that.
So, Michael, speaking of corners, and DB just said his name, like how bad would the medicals on Will Johnson have to be for you to allow him to slide to the second round?
I thought two things about him. I said this before.
You said it to me.
Yeah, I said it to you, and I look at it and I think to myself, if you're a corner and you don't run at all, right? And you got great tape, which Will Johnson did, and there's no injury questions, then you can still be a top 10 pick. We've seen it before. The Cleveland Browns did it a few years ago. But if you don't run and there's medicals and your last year of tape isn't great, then I guess you can drop. It must be really bad, Robbie. It must be. Because if nothing else, somebody late in that first round with not a great corner class, honestly. Some of the other guys have injury concerns. So I think that it must be bad. That's all I can figure for him to drop completely out of the first round.
It's almost got to be like a degenerative or something they're considered where they're worried about being chronic, right? Like I can't think of a single injury that's like a one-off that would lead me to be like, oh, this guy, like I'm worried about this guy long term, right? Like they have to be worried about something like a degenerative issue.
I always worry about a foot because
you want to say Liz Frank, but you don't want to put that on him.
Yeah, oh, gotcha. Okay.
And even more than that, so there's 28 bones in the foot, dude, an ankle. So any of them can cause a lot of problems. If one of them is, like you say, degenerative, or it could be an issue where it's displaced and they're not sure the surgery is going to fix it. Because once you have surgery on your back or your foot, you're screwed.
Yeah.
Most people are. You're lucky sometimes if you're, Steph Curry and you come back from that. But usually when that happens, you're done. And so maybe that's one of the concerns. I don't know. It just has to be bad because the guy's got too much good tape from 2 years ago where he's the MVP of the national championship game and all this stuff. So I don't know how that ends up happening unless it's the whole medical concerns.
Hey, so you think a year removed from the Achilles and him throwing the ball to the wrong team last year, and I know you hate the Falcons, so you got a lot to erase, especially of all the arguing you and I have done about Cousins. Could you see him being better than he was a year ago?
Sure. I mean, he's still you give him protection and you allow him to stand back there and just deliver the ball, and you don't force him to throw a whole bunch of deep outs, which it seems like his arm wasn't there for that last year. I think he can be serviceable. I think the money is the concern with him. There's so much money on the line, and if for some reason Atlanta did have a chance to move him, they probably would have to swallow a bunch of that salary. So I think, personally, I just probably would keep him as my backup and be a tutor and do it that way. Because I don't know if it's worth them moving him unless somebody's going to tell him we're going to take a bunch of that ridiculous contract he has.
All right, let me ask you something. I had this debate yesterday into the wee hours of last night. I know how you feel about Tyler Shuck. And now that Sanders is at least in the second round, do you think value for the quarterback and think, oh, I can get Sanders as a second now? Or do you still look at a guy like Shuck for what he is, regardless of what round it is?
I think Cleveland has to take Shedeur.
I don't think they do. I don't.
I'm not saying they will. I'm saying that if it's me and I really want to fulfill what Myles Garrett said, we want to win, I think you need to take a quarterback who can actually play, and I think play kind of early. I'm not saying Shuck can, but if you really are serious about this whole thing, there's enough qualities in Shedeur Sanders. Take all his dad out of it. Take everything. There's enough good qualities to where I would take him. And they got 2 second-round picks, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. So I would take him with one of those two, if not the first one. But I still think Cleveland needs to make that move and grab a quarterback. After Cleveland, I don't think the Saints don't like him at all. He doesn't fit at all what Kellen Moore likes in terms of a quarterback. So I don't even know who it would be if it's not Cleveland for Shedeur.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'm sorry, what's that?
I said, unless you can think of somebody else, I don't know who else it would be. We looked at it yesterday, right? You looked at everybody after 21, and there's only like 4 teams really that need quarterbacks, and I don't know who else it is besides them.
So the Browns have the 1st and 4th picks of the second round. The Saints have the 8th, which you think they're not interested at all.
No.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have, because the Giants don't have a second rounder, which they would be if they hadn't moved up for Jaxson Dart. The only other team, and I kind of made this argument with DB about their first round pick, but if you're the Jets and you go, hey, maybe I don't 100% know if Justin Fields is the guy, maybe at the 10th pick in the second round, that makes a lot more sense than a first round pick in the top 10. But outside of that, I mean, there's really not a lot of options for him.
No, I think Jets are a great call, but I don't know, and obviously I don't coach, but I don't know how hard it would be to have 2 completely diversive guys in your system.
Mm-hmm. And it almost makes more sense for them to take Milroe, right? Like in terms of
Right, because he could do other things. But I'm saying you look at those 2 guys, Milroe, and you say, okay, athletic. I know when we practice, we can do the same exact things. When we bring in a guy like Shedeur, we're not doing the exact same things, right? We have to change up what we're doing in practice, even with the system. So I don't think that would fit. But I don't know. And I think Milroe, the reason why he was there last night, people kept talking about first round. I think he's there because somebody in the second round is going to take him, and it's too good of a value of an athlete. They're going to take him. And again, I know the Steelers don't have a second round pick, but I thought that'd be a great fit. I still think he'd be good there. But yeah, Shedeur, I feel a little bad for him, a little bit. I know he's a Colorado guy. We don't have any.
I do. It's okay to. I feel bad for him
because some of the stuff said about him too often is said about just black quarterbacks.
I understand. I'm 100%. I mean, say it for those in the back.
It drives me crazy.
It does. Like, other quarterbacks say it, and it's you like their competitiveness and their bravado. When Shedeur says it, it's he's arrogant and he's cocky. I'm with you, and I almost never play the race card, but I'm kind of over it. And it's not like. And here's the other thing. Let's not act like we haven't seen others use nepotism to the fullest. But we're mad. We're mad at Dion and LeBron for putting their kids in the best position possible. Like, we've watched people do this for years. And it's like, I mean, really, guys? Like, we're mad at this? We're mad.
Yeah. When most quarterbacks are extremely confident to even cocky, it's a good thing.
I mean, did we not hear Josh Allen's pre-draft interviews? And we're like, man, this dude's a 48% completion percentage guy. Are we sure he's not delusional? and lo and behold, he is a bad boy. Now, Sanders isn't Josh Allen physically. But nobody saw Josh Allen being MVP candidate every year coming out of Wyoming either.
Why does Sanders have to be the uppity word, right? Why does he have to be that? Why can't it just go, he went to Jackson State, which wasn't the best place for him, and succeeded, and they won more games than they ever won before. Then he went to Colorado, a team in misery, and I know it was the Big 12, but still got to 9 wins. Why isn't that the conversation, opposed to the conversation of, he's cocky. He's the most confident kid I've ever heard. Well, that's bad. Like, you want a kid to walk in and go, I don't know how good I am. I certainly hope that I can play in this league. That's not what you want. And it's disgusting. If you want to tell me that there's certain throws he can't make, I'm with you on that. If you want to tell me that he takes too many sacks, I'm with you on that. If you want to tell me that his processing at times is delayed, I'm with you on all that. But all the other stuff was just disgusting. It's not necessary too. And it's always, again, it's always the black guy. It always is. It drives me nuts, man. I told you this thing. I did a research paper on this in college on the black quarterback because I addressed the 1988 college ball season where you had like 10 guys who quarterbacked the best.
Hey, was this
the
McPherson, McNatt? Was it that stretch?
Yeah, yes. And Rodney P. And those guys didn't get shots in the NFL. They either had to be a backup or they had to go to CFL to make it work and all that. And I'm like, why was it? This is back in 88. Some of the same conversations that were happening back in 88 are happening even in 2025. And it's sad to hear. And as much as I think Todd McShay, I like him. I mean, we used to have him on the show before Todd McShay was Todd McShay, but some of the stuff he said I thought was uncalled for. I didn't think it fit of what needed to be said about Shedeur's issues as a player and quarterback in the NFL.
Yeah, you know me. Ow! Sorry, bud. My bad. That was totally unprofessional.
You kick somebody or what?
No, I'm sorry.
He's dealing with the knee.
God.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
okay,
I understand that.
Sorry. Two things. Number one, I'm an NFL Network guy. I wish.
Oh yeah, me too.
I wish they would move Louis Riddick over so he wouldn't get buried on ESPN. But I did like the addition of Klatt to the NFL Network as somebody that actually I felt like knew what they were talking about and could remain fairly objective. So I weathered that trade-off, but I'm not going to lie. As an NFL Network guy, I wish they could somehow steal Riddick. But he just makes too much bread over there. But they bury him.
Yeah, he barely gets to talk.
Oh, I would love an all-star team. I want Saban, right? I like listening to Klatt. I think if you could merge them, because I don't listen to the ESPN one at all, the main one. I'll listen to the one with Saban for a while. I'll flip over there and hear what he had to say, especially one of his players gets drafted. And then majority of the time I'm listening to NFL Network. But Rich Eisen has gotten to the point where he's so annoying and so over the top in his stick that it's even hard for me to listen to them at times because of him.
I'm not even – it pained me to say how he butchered the Jacksonville-Cleveland trade. I'm like – and I'm Ron Burgundy, and I know I can't read, so I wanted to let him off the hook. But I would play to my strengths. I would just memorize the information that I wanted you to know, and I would just talk. I'm like, what? I had to rewind it.
He used to be, and he was one of my favorites, man. I mean, I watched him, way back, obviously at ESPN, but I thought when he went to NFL Network and we had him on and talked about this, that was one of the boldest moves of any broadcaster ever. He went from something that was incredibly successful to something that no one knew if it would work. A lot of people question, NFL only network? How's that going to work? What are you thinking? So I admire him for that, but now he's just gotten into his bag, man. It's not good to listen to. But a couple players I thought that I really liked that I thought were very smart. So I'm not a huge Tet person. I'm not, right?
No.
I think that I think some of the stuff he does, I'm a question, right? But Carolina needed a big wide receiver because they have a quarterback who's little and can't see stuff. So, hey, great job.
You're stupid.
Go and grab your guy who you can't miss. Now they got two of them. Now they got two big giant guys out there that's going to be hard for them to miss. So great job by Carolina of targeting what they needed and taking him. So
a little guy that can't see stuff? I mean, really?
How many times do you see that? It's funny because Ted is leaving Arizona where he had a little quarterback who couldn't see stuff. It was the same thing. Now he's got another little guy who can't see stuff. But I thought that was great. I mentioned earlier that I thought that, the Saints I wanted them to take. I thought Mikael Williams would have been awesome in the system, but they did address their big need. The offensive line was a mess last year. They don't know who can be healthy, who's not healthy. And so I thought that was great targeting them. And then when you get later in that first round, the Ravens are funny because I mentioned about them sitting in
he's gonna be a star. He's gonna be a star.
They also take guys, and I think college programs used to be more like this. NFL programs should be like this. They took a guy who they know can fit in not just their system, but into their culture. He fits their culture so well. He already looks like a Raven. As he was talking, I said, that dude's a Raven. And so,
and you're putting him next to Kyle Hamilton now. Like, they'll be silly.
Exactly. And that's how you build. And the other one is, I thought Denver did a great job because Sean Payton is doing essentially what he did with the Saints, right? Now, he has his quarterback who's a little undersized, and maybe he's not going to be Drew Brees, but he went out and got he's going to get a running back, but he went out and got a guy who is versatile in the secondary. He had that. When he had Darren Sharper back there, he's had guys in his secondary when they won a Super Bowl who could play different positions and be really athletic back there. He went out and did it again this year. So I think that he's building an interesting team at Denver. And I know it's hard to win in that division, but I think now this round, you go out and you go and get, if you can't probably get Trevion Henderson, he'll be gone, but you go get one of those good running backs and it'll make all the difference in that team.
That's our guy, Michael Severe. Michael, we appreciate it. As always, great stuff. Enjoy your draft take. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you later, guys.